Okay, hey everybody, welcome to our Planet Cassandra Global Meetup. And my name is Sohail, and I think this is our fourth official meetup. And last time we talked about how to uh,
Oh,
contribute to our
there you are.
project to Apache Cassandra in different ways. Oh, did I
Oh,
get
you
disconnected?
froze up for a second, but you're okay now.
Oh, okay, yeah. I was just talking about the last meetup we had. We talked about how to contribute to Apache Cassandra, and this time you're gonna uh, code with AI, a vibe coding, and maybe a full stack application with AI. And the floor is yours, Rahul. So without further ado, let's go for it.
Hey everybody, Rahul Singh. Thanks, Sohail, for getting us started. Yeah, so I'm super excited about today. I have been in the Cassandra world since 2014, 2015, so a little bit over 10 years. And then around the same time when I entered the AI ML world, um, from a professional perspective, although I've been following AI/ML for well over 25 years, neural networks, natural language processing, um, computer vision, etc. But in the last 3 years, nearly 3 years, let's say 26, 27 months, Gen AI has been again at the forefront from an AI perspective. People have these shiny things come along that say, oh, AI is going to do all this cool stuff, and nothing really happens. And I've been disappointed, but I think, this large language model revolution really convinced it for me. And so the first time I felt I, quote, vibe coded was right after ChatGPT came out, and I gave it a structure of, hey, I want you to go read through these like awesome markdown files which have a structure, extract a table of contents, go through each table of contents and write a chapter or whatever, basically, and then generate this PDF, basically write a book for me, right? Look at these awesome files that have these TOCs and write a book for me. And it wrote a Python program that could do that. Now I had to give it structure, but this was in like the really, really early days of ChatGPT, like people were like starting to understand what it could do. So I knew the potential of AI to write code, and I don't think everybody had caught on to it yet. And now what you'll see is I will show you something that I've already started earlier today. But I think what you'll see now is within, whatever, 26 months, almost 3 years, how much different AI can do from an engineering perspective, and what the potential is for the future. In Cassandra world, what it means is where we were once sometimes, stuck with, oh, I have to use Cassandra or I have to use Postgres. Something is being told to us to, we have to use this database. One of the barriers to entry for Cassandra was folks that did not know how to data model. So, and that would create problems downstream. Well, from a vibe coding perspective, this shouldn't be a problem, because the AI code generator should understand good Cassandra data modeling, or at least NoSQL data modeling. But the other cool thing is that in the other, let's say, Postgres world, there's a lot of ready to go frameworks that work, ORM tools, etc., that make it a little bit easier potentially to interact and maintain code, right? But with vibe coding, you don't have to maintain any code. Technically, the AI can maintain it for you. So it just kind of equalizes the playing field from people that are vibe coding with Postgres versus with Cassandra. There really shouldn't be a difference anymore. And from an ops perspective, there's managed Cassandra providers and cloud data providers. So I'm gonna use Astra today because it's super easy to do that. But the point is that I think that's really what the cool factor is for the Cassandra community. You don't have to be trained. Now that can go a different way. As with all vibe coders, and new vibe coders are realizing is if you don't know how to program, eventually that's going to catch up to you. So anyways, let me bring up my agenda just to go over a few concepts, and then I'll go into the hands-on portion in a moment. All right, you all should see my vibe developing the Cassandra full stack app. See my Notion?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, cool. Yeah, so I'm going to cover this concept of not only coding. My friend Alex Voleshnev has a thing on not only SQL. You know, what is NoSQL? NoSQL does not mean no SQL. It just means not only SQL. So in the same way, you know, no coding does not mean not coding. It just means not only coding. So there's different ways to make things now. We're going to talk a little bit about, you know, what are the tools out there that help us vibe code. Vibe coding just means going with the flow of what the AI code generator is telling us, and it's just doing the work for us. I like to use something else called vibe development. There's a really good book called Coding to Develop, Coder to Developer. You know, what is the transformation when you go from a coder to a developer? What do you have to be? What do you have to know? And when you say you're a coder versus when you're a developer, what's the difference? And it's really about mindset. And so vibe development is what I just started kind of putting some structure on vibe coding with some learned lessons. And then I'm going to, you know, show some hands-on examples of code that I've been maintaining with AI code generators, meaning code that is maintaining Cassandra API code. And then I have a new project that I just started earlier, because sometimes these things takes time to do the initial build, the initial generation of the application. Although you'll see on the chat, like it's pretty impressive, like with one prompt, what it was able to do. And then we're going to convert an existing Postgres app into a Cassandra app. It'll be kind of interesting to see. And I don't know if that's going to work, but I can definitely show you my success story. Can I zoom into this? Let me see if I can zoom into this. Maybe I have to open up the original. Ah, this is it. Perfect. All right, let's see if I can hide this part. Nope, that's fine. Okay, so what I mean by not only coding, the world today is not as it was before. There is a layer cake of everything from cloud ops to all the way to, let's say, site level, app level automation. You know, every one of these layers in the layer cake is a type of technology, some classification, right? Some horizontal classification of technology. And then on this gradient, or this is on the bottom, it's closer to the hardware. And on the top, it's closer to the user. And then the gradient from left to right here on this side is the more heavy coding, right? Versus on this side, it's more no code, low code, right? Automations, clicks, not code type thing, right? So for example, for an API, you could write an API in Java, or you could use a system like Hasura, or let's say Stargate, you know, Cassandra Stargate. Or you could use something called Postgres, right? These things are less work. This is more work, meaning there's more coding involved here. Here's more configuration. Data ops, for example, Airbyte on the low code side versus Spark on the heavy code side. So I'm showing this now because Cassandra is kind of like right. I think it's right here. It's just the screenshot clipped it, but it's like right here. It's a type of database, right? So is Astra. Astra's type of data business as well, but Astra does not require us to do any ops. It's just, we just get to use it, less work. So I put Astra over here. So same thing with, let's say, Key Spaces, Cosmos DB in that world versus if you have to run this yourself and manage it. So that's what some part of the gradient also represents. So more work, less work. So when we're talking about AI vibe coding, what we're really doing is we're generating code that is used to be this side of the equation, meaning the work involved with writing and maintaining code, right? It's not going to like, well, it could potentially operate some of the no code, low code things. If it has like a DevOps API, for example, it could write the DevOps API to operate these things. But what it's really doing is it's writing code for us that took us a long time. And so there's a competition now, do we want to no code, low code apps really quickly? Or do we want to generate applications using AI that are basically maintaining the full stack, top to bottom? And what you'll see, it's kind of tempting to do this. I don't know necessarily if this is the way to go for business applications right now, but for like prototype applications, startups, I mean, this is ridiculous. Like how quickly you can take a concept and make it real, right? It's, if you haven't seen it, it blows your mind, and it gets better every week. So, anyways, that's what we're going to see, is that, this is what's getting made easier. I feel like eventually the vibe coding Copilot stuff will get to the rest of this world here. I'm seeing it in the no code world, like with WeWeb. For example, WeWeb is over here. It's a low code, no code, site level app designer. You can now prompt it and tell it what to create, and it's built on Vue on the front end. It's actually using Vue framework, and then you just connect your no code data, and it works. So it's starting to come. Anyways, how did AI tools come into my workflow? Well, initially, even before ChatGPT came out, there was a thing called GitHub Copilot. There still is a thing called GitHub Copilot, which some people were paying for. I was kind of skeptical, but they said they liked it. I didn't really use it. Obviously, when ChatGPT came out, a lot of people use ChatGPT and still do, and I still think every now and then ChatGPT is smarter. So there will be some error, one of these things can't solve for me. I'll tell it, hey, here's the issue, and it'll come up with an alternative solution. And I just copy and paste the alternative solution back into one of these other tools, and it'll just do the work. So ChatGPT is still pretty good, pretty smart. Devlin, Brief, there's a bunch of other tools. People are like talking about these things, and they make a big deal. And I'm jokingly putting Devlin here. Nobody I know really used it, but there's always hype. There's always some hype that comes along in terms of, oh, this tool is going to do everything. So just be mindful that this is in a long line of tools that'll come and go. This was first in this list, but it's last in a long list of, code tools, code intelligence tools. So anyways, this is a rotating, like door. These tools are going to come and go. But for right now, I'm using Cursor, I'm using Replit. Every now and then I'll use Veer0. I love Bolt. I don't use it as much, but this is one of my favorites. But I find it that all of these, if you notice, are using Sonnet. Claude is the company that makes the Sonnet model. Anthropic is the company, Claude is the model, Sonnet is like one of their foundational models. And OpenAI has obviously GPT-4o, GPT 4.5, o1, all these. Sonnet is the one that all of these code agents, AI coding agents, whatever, AI tools for vibe coding, all of them use Sonnet. And so you kind of accept the fact that that is really the tool that you're using. All of these tools are just kind of wrapping it. So Sonnet is a really good, and so some of the tools you can pay for the Sonnet API. Yeah, just give me a minute. I'll answer questions in a minute. Let's see. Yeah, so this is being recorded to me, and I think the page, I will publish it on my session notes anyways. This page is actually already public. I'll share the whole web page with you guys. Let me see. Copy link. Here. There you go. That's the link to the page I'm sharing. Anyways, back to the talk. Sonnet is also available via API. So there's tools, for example, you don't have to pay the monthly fee. You just connect your Sonnet, ChatGPT, keys, and it will just use the keys. Although I find that at some point that will get expensive. So you might as well pay for a tool that wraps Sonnet, and then they have some other deal so that you can do as many calls as you want, basically. But I have both. I have API based, and I also just use it via unlimited via Cursor and Replit. So let's pause for a second. Any questions? I know there was a request for sharing the document, which I just shared, so you already have that. Okay. Great.
Just one question. Sorry, just one
Yeah,
question.
go ahead.
So like you mentioned, there is Cursor, Replit, Bolt, and all of them underlying they are using Sonnet cloud models. So what's the difference? Is it the way they are integrating the features what's the difference then?
I will I'll show you guys in a minute, but let me walk through everything first, okay?
Yeah.
If I get to this, then you'll understand. Yeah. At the high level, I'll say the difference is everybody's using OpenAI, ChatGPT under their software. What's the difference? Well, their prompts are different. Right? So
The
yeah.
parameters, configurations.
Their configurations. Their prompts are different, their tools are different. They're all agents. Agents are all the same. Agents are one big loop
Yep.
with a system prompt and tool definitions, and the tool definitions have abilities. Claude Sonnet is the model that can execute agents, specifically programming agents. And so that's what Claude is doing. The other thing they provide is that these are not just configurations, they are environments. Replit has a built-in Postgres database, or built-in cache, built-in object storage, right? Those things are all kind of built in. It has a deployment system to push it to production, all kind of built in. So that is a huge difference from, oh, it's just a configuration, because there is software that is available that is open source, which does the same thing. So just, try running it. So it's not just a configuration, it's more than that.
Sure, I'll check it out.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll show a few of these. I'm not going to get to show all of them, but yeah, I would say there's a lot of subjective differences as well as objective differences. So cool. So my major lessons, I'll just give you two big important things. There's a lesson from my friend that he's the one who really started using Replit, and he's non-technical, and he was trying to build this kind of like community app, and then he finally learned that he was like, if I just say like I want a Reddit clone that does XYZ, right? That uses Apache Cassandra. So I'm saying if I want a Reddit clone that uses Apache Cassandra as backend, right? And this will work on Replit. That's what I just did earlier, right? And it will make the full application. You'll see in a second. It'll make the full application. What I found is, after I've spent months with it, is just like anything in computing or in people management, right? Communication is everything. But the way you communicate, when it has structure, it's even better. So, I've had this general playbook of how we do requirement specifications, etc. And we generally, it's a playbook, but anyways, we apply it to the AI side. We realize that the core is really the structure, right? The schema, the taxonomy, the ontology, the data model, the pattern that we describe to the AI when we're vibe coding, ultimately is the most important thing, because the rest of it is just window dressing, right? Like the user interface is using the schema that you give it in a certain way. So I'll get into that in a second. So that's the understanding that if I can get you to walk away with is like, vibe coding is all about really, being as clear as possible. Sometimes being clear is to say, hey, I want a clone of X, which already exists. or sometimes it's like being very, very literal. Like it needs to be able to do this, 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 and this. So let's see. Bolt. Yeah, we'll come back to Bolt later, but there is an open source project called Bolt.diy, which is a fork of the original open source Bolt, which is now closed. But Bolt.diy is better. It actually still uses the backend that Bolt uses to run the containers called web containers. They're still supporting it, which is kind of cool. So you can run Bolt.diy on your own computer with your own open source models and everything. So it's kind of cool. But I use Replit and Cursor on a daily basis. Every now and then I'll take a look at V0. I'm going to open up my Replit. Let me know when you can see my Replit screen. Yes, no?
Yep, we see it.
Okay, awesome. So Replit can be installed on your computer like I have it here, or Replit could be just accessed over the web like this. Web access is as good as the Replit Windows app. Doesn't really matter. But quick tour. Replit is kind of Visual Studio like-ish, but not really. It's not as complicated, honestly. You have different panes. I have it configured this way. You can configure it any way you want, meaning like, you can have tabs over here. You can have this and split. It's just like an IDE, but it's not. So I ran a command. I ran it earlier, and I said I want, a Reddit clone using AstraDB Cassandra as a service. Like literally, that was all I asked for, and it made a plan. Okay, and it said, okay, I'm going to do this for you, but I'm going to initially do it as a Postgres database. Okay, and I said, fine, go ahead and do it. And about 10 minutes later, because it gives you an estimate, right? It takes about 12 minutes. It brings up the application. And then it says, hey, do you want to migrate this to Cassandra? By the way, I need you to give me your AstraDB application. So I'll get to this in a second. I don't want to do this quite yet because I have not. I do have the stuff to put here, but I don't want to use I want to make a fresh database for this, right? So anyways, it's running. This app is running. I've not yet migrated it to Cassandra, but this is a full-fledged application that it has made, that it's running right now on Postgres. It's a Reddit clone. It has a login system, right? I can sign up for stuff. It did all of that, literally using less than 10 words, right? So that is amazing. If you don't believe that it did all this, look at the code. So the code is all available here, and it shows the framework. I could have been more prescriptive, right? I could have said, I want a Django app. I'm feeling, Django today. Or I want to, but I think it did TypeScript, React, and I'm pretty sure this server is also TypeScript and maybe Express. But I'll make an account and I'll make a new database and I'll add the details here in a second. So this is one application we'll come back to, right? I just did this earlier. Like I did this an hour ago, right? There's no way I could have created this app in an hour, right? As a human. So the AI did all this work. So it's pretty cool. The other app I'm going to show is an app that I started using V0 for, and let me see if I have it in the right place. So V0 was one of the first to enter the market, and I'll show the interface. We just won't use it today. But I started the user interface using V0. My colleague used that code and started, writing code using, I don't know, Visual Studio, I guess. And he was just maintaining it in source control. And then once it was kind of starting to be deployed using our CI/CD, I started looking at it using some of the cloud IDs that I have. But I was just starting to get into Replit, so I just said, you know what, let's just see if Replit could open it up. So when you open an existing repository with Replit, you'll notice that this one has automated developer agent, right? I have access to the assistant, but because I imported this source code, I only have access to the assistant and not the agent. What's the difference? Well, I'll tell you one thing. The assistant costs 5 cents per major edit, which is not a lot. The agent costs 25 cents a major edit. Again, it's not a lot. If you plan it correctly, the agent is actually much more cost effective if you give it enough instructions. So I'm not going to get into the difference between the agent and the assistant. I think it's just something you have to try out. They're very similar, but the agent is just smarter and it can take on much larger scope tasks. So in the very beginning, when you ask Reddit, and you ask Replit, hey, I want a Reddit clone that's based on Cassandra, it does a lot of thinking before it does anything, and that thinking first comes up as a plan, and then you basically you say, yeah, I want this. You have to say, I want this. There's you didn't see it, but there's a section where it says, I'm gonna do this. Right here. Like I had to check off on all of these things. I could have chosen to say, just do this first part, right? So it does a lot of thinking. So if it can do this thinking from just one sentence here, it is actually able to do that. You can later come back to an agent and give it a much bigger plan, very, very complex list of instructions, and it will basically plan it out and it will start to execute it. So at the very end of that, it said, hey, do you want any specific features to enhance it? Do you want to fix any issues that you saw? Or do you want to switch from Postgres to Astra Cassandra DB? I didn't tell it anything beyond the fact that I wanted it initially. It didn't say anything about Cassandra here, but it did come back and said, hey, do you want to switch it? And I said, yes, I do. Let's just do option 3. So I will go with the flow. I'm going to go ahead and open up my Astra account. And I'll just I think which one is, yeah, I think it's my Google one. No. There we go. Okay, so I'm gonna maybe reuse. Yeah, I'm just gonna make a new one. I'm gonna make a new database. I'm gonna delete it later, so I'll just say this is for Cassit because that's what it's calling the Cassandra Reddit. Sure, create database. And in a second, I'll be able to get the details. I'll give it a second. But while it's happening, I can just, at least, I know this is going to be default key space. That's what it is when it starts up. No, don't use those. Okay, now let me wait for those. Hopefully it'll be very quick. I think it's usually very quick. Yep. Okay, nope, still initializing. Anyway, so while it's happening, I'll show off on the this other project where I've been maintaining code. There's this code, which is the user interface and a REST API. The user interface is in React. Sorry, it's in Next, which is has React components, and it has an API which is also Next. And then that API talks to another API, which is in Python. And both of these, they use Cassandra as the backend, the same Cassandra database as the backend. So that other Python, code base, I've been using Cursor. So that's the other vibe coding tool that I've been using, and I'm finding it, they work well together. Also, Cursor is general purpose. They make you actually download a tool that looks like Visual Studio Code. I don't like that, but it works fine. When you see my history of conversations with the assistant, so since I imported this code, I can only do certain things. I can't do like magic here. But I'm able to see. I'm able to give it instructions like, I want to do this with the front end, for example. I want you to change this particular field. I could be very, very technical with the change I want, or I could be very, very non-technical. I could be very vague, but it understands that when I'm telling it to do something, it may have to change the front end. It may have to change the API. It may have to change the database. And if it can make those changes, it will make those changes. Now, because let's say Astra is not deeply integrated into Replit, Replit does have a partnership with Neon, which is like a managed Postgres DB, but on that side, they'll make the database for you. It's pretty impressive. But what it will do is it'll say, I'll make these changes, but you have to go execute this code. And then you just run the code, the alter command or whatever you have to run. The other thing that I found that's pretty impressive here is that, and I have to find it if I've done it here, or I may have done it on a different project. When I needed a new table and I needed to move data, I was able to say, I need a new table, I need to move data. So it gave me the schema, and then it gave me the code. It wrote the code for a script to migrate the data for me. So it's pretty advanced, and it's not just thinking about making the UI, the API, the data, the schema. It actually understands some data operations to a certain degree. So it's pretty smart. So this application now, for the most part, has been maintained using using the chat. I don't touch the code. I mean, I know certain things I can quickly fix, but let's say I think it was like I made a kind of a major change to the user interface, which I mean, I find the exact fork, but so what is this application? You're like, okay, great, it manages code. What is this application? So let's take a look at the live version of it. This is the Replit URL. There's another kind of like production URL, or not production, it's just another more public URL. But So when you're looking at this application, you know, it's like, what is this thing, right? What is this thing that we're looking at here? And honestly, I'm not going to tell you what it is. I'm just going to kind of walk you through it, what it does. So I've got kind of a, you know, colorful display of some cool images. Looks like it's talking about technology things. Okay, sure, great. This one looks like it's talking about productivity. I'm gonna go ahead and click on one of these. And I come here and it's got a summary and it's got some audio. So it seems to be, you know, it's like it seems to be an AI application, and there's some multimodality, right? There's some image generation, there's some audio generation, there's some summarization, whatever. So this is not the full application, it's just one view of it. I didn't write the code for this view. Okay. In fact, the view used to be more like this, where like you upload a document, you choose. So this is what this app actually does, is it just kind of like, you can upload multiple applications, you can link to them. You can say, I want an inventor's view, and it can be a patent, or it could be any, it could be like a white paper. It doesn't really matter. It could be any document. It could be a video, although I don't think I've tested that yet. But it will make a summary and it'll come up with a cool picture. So that's what it does. And then there's, if you look at the you know, the thing now it looks like an article, but the reality is that the original interface, it was more like a ChatGPT conversation, right? So to get the result, such a massive change, I'll show you the original, not the original, I'll just say the previous version. This is the previous version. And obviously same database, right? The previous version looked more like this, where, you know, it's more like I'm you know, chatting, I'm having a conversation with ChatGPT. You know, tell me about, I don't think this works yet, about I think it does. Yeah. So that was the original interface. And so I wanted such a drastic change, I thought it would take me days. And the reality is that it doesn't take that long to go from an interface like this, full stack application, to an interface like this. Because since I've been maintaining the code with Replit, it knows everything. It knows the schema, it knows the model, right? And so coming back to Replit, if I were to ask it, I'm going to say, I'm going to make a new chat. I don't want to mess with this one. By the way, while you may or may not notice, every conversation I have, there are these checkpoints. And what it's doing is it's keeping a source control checkpoint of everything that it has made. So I can always go back. If it's screwed up something, I can always go back. It also allows me to synchronize with my own source control, as I mentioned, but that's why I open up different conversations. They're like different branches, right? We'll send you chat. And so I'll say, hey, I would like to allow users to edit only their uploads, because that's what it is. Users will upload their stuff, right? And can you also help me allow them to use, to invite their friends to collaborate on the same upload. So I'm being very, very belligerently non-technical here. I'm trying to be, because I wanted to just take my intent. My intent is that I just want people to be able to collaborate on these things. So that's my intent. And I'm just going to say, you know, what needs to be done on the Cassandra database. And I'm not asking it to actually do anything for me, but it will tell me what I need to change. It will tell me the alter statements. It will even give me CQL sh commands to like import and export data. So so it figured out it had to read 8 different files. So it kind of, it's starting to work, but I'm not going to move forward with this, right? I'm not prepared to make this change yet. And so that's what it does. When you ask it to do something, it will plan some changes for you. So in this case, it's showing you what it would change. So in this case, it would add an owner ID to the data model. It would add collaborators, which would be an array. There's a new model called permissions. New table called permissions is telling me the CQL. Even though it says SQL, it looks like CQL. Readings. Yes, actually the internal name for what we do when we upload these things is called a reading. So it didn't do any of those changes for me, by the way, right? It basically is asking me, do I want to make these changes? And I don't want to make these changes right now. So Replit, even on your own existing code, pretty dang cool. Let's go back to our Reddit here, Reddit Cassandra. Our database should be up. Should be. I think it is. We have the inside scoop on somebody that can ping the right person to make sure they are. Okay, good. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, thankfully DataStax makes it super easy. So my API endpoint, I'm going to come back here. There's a way to manage these secrets a little bit better, but let me just I'm going to open up a notepad and just copy and paste stuff. That'll be a little bit easier for me. Okay. Cool. All right, and then let's go back here. So the token. Okay, you got the key space. I think it's doing it like this. No, I don't want to use the anthrop key. I want this key. Yes. Okay, so we got the key space, we got the region. The region I think is just US East 2. So we'll see. No, I don't want to. Account secret just means that you want to reuse these, and I'm not going to reuse these. So I'm not going to put them in my account secrets. All right, and so we'll just resume. So I had started this earlier, and I had just let it go. So another fun, I don't want to say fun, I would just say a really neat feature is that I could tell it to do something, walk away, and log into another computer. It'll be exactly where I left it, right? And I actually have VNC server or whatever, so I can like log into my computers remotely. I can log into my computer from my phone or my tablet and be able to use it, and because it's all in the browser, it's kind of a game changer. So it added the things. I don't think it's going to work because I feel like I did something wrong here, but that's fine because that's part of the fun. is it will have an issue. How do you fix it? So I'll say, sure, let's do this. It needed my permission to go ahead with the transition from Postgres to Cassandra. And so it told me what it's gonna require: changing our connection code, right? Updating our data models. And it will actually make a list of all those changes, and we can see exactly what it's going to do. And if you haven't paid attention to the stuff that it's creating, on the left-hand side here, you can close or show the files, but I usually keep it open. Let's see. There's your client app. Right, this is a React application. This is a Next. This is not Next. This is a TypeScript application right here. Just an what kind of API it's running. Yeah, it's using Express, standard node. But just look at all the stuff it created. Actually, I should show you. It should have also created a database. It actually has a database. I'm pretty sure it has data because it has all this API. Yeah, so it made this database with users, posts. Well, there's no post because I haven't logged into it. Comments, votes, categories. It made all that from my one prompt, right? This is the fake data that's in here. So what I'm expecting is, when it's said and done, is we're going to have some semblance of these schemas in our Astra Cassandra database as well, because it will take care of giving me the CQL to create it, or it will just do its own schema creation. We'll see what it does. So it recognizes that it needs a new storage class, different type of database. So it's starting to make its own storage class. So if you're not a software developer, it's fine. I just think it's cool because it tells you what it's thinking, and a lot of times I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Makes sense. Other people that have told me is that they get frustrated with some of the, I guess, the detours it takes. I've had detours with it where I'm just like, no, I don't want to do that. So I just go back. But they don't know better, right? They're not engineers, so they'll keep vibe coding, right? Which is the thing in vibe coding. It's like you go with the flow. Oh, give an error, fine, copy and paste it. Tell it to fix it, and that will get you somewhere, but it's not productive, right? So if you have to do it for a job, like I use it for my job, I make apps and I'm making automations and things for myself that I now can make very quickly. I can make apps for myself very, very quickly that I couldn't do before. I don't want to spend time, mucking around with all this code. I'd rather just tell it what to do and have it do it for me. So, but yeah, it's a game changer. This type of task, going from a database, Postgres database, to a Cassandra database, right? This type of task of an existing application has so many moving pieces. So, don't think I'm like overly generalizing how it makes everything so easy. I know better. There's still a lot of data ops stuff that needs to happen, but I could, in this environment, test that hypothesis that it could be done. I could have this write scripts to migrate data. I could test those scripts. I've noticed in another Replit project, I had to process, and on an existing project, there was maybe 1,000 items that had already, an app completely built in Replit, by the way. There were 1,000 items in the database, people were using it. And we have to do some AI process to run it on all 1,000 items, just like summarize it, the contents, and then tag it or whatever, and just save it back to the database. And so you think that, you know, you could just do that, but it's not a SQL operation. You have to write some code. So we just told it, hey, can you do this for us? And it not only did it, it wrote it in a way where it recognized that it was going to have latencies with the LM calls to do the summarization. And it said, hey, we'll make it into a batchable script that you can give it a batch size, and you can also say dry run. I mean, it was just kind of amazing what it thought out. But it's a utility script that you could put it on a cron job and it would work every single time. So it does a good amount of data thinking as well. And it is impressive. I would say it is pretty impressive. So it's doing its work. As you see, it's trying stuff. You're not seeing it because I moved over to the database viewer, but what's happening in the background is it's making these changes. It sometimes runs things. Right now it hasn't ran things, but interesting thing about Replit, it will run the app, and if it has an error, it will interpret the error and it will fix it, and they'll rerun the app until it runs. Then if it runs but there's an error on the front end, it will guess it. If it can fix it, it'll fix it. Otherwise, sometimes it doesn't catch it. You just screenshot that error and you paste it and it'll fix it. So what does it do for you know, a person who's a Cassandra engineer versus a non-Cassandra engineer? I would say it does the same thing, but it's that aspect of the data migration. If you're working with Cassandra, you know this. You cannot just make arbitrary schema changes. Sometimes you have to make a new table, literally. And some tables you cannot just, you know, you have to run a Spark job for it. Well, I've tested it. It writes Spark code pretty well, right? So I could have a different project which is just the data migrations, and say, hey, write me a Spark Py job that takes this schema and changes it. And so there's a lot of utility things that a Cassandra developer cannot take for granted, that like a pure relational database developer can just do. They can do select star insert into, right? But you just can't do that in Cassandra world. Those type of operations just become easier because you can just ask the AI, hey, can you just do this for me? And it'll write out a script, and then you just run the script. So it's coming up slowly. It may take 5-10 minutes. If you have $25 to spare, I would recommend, so try out Replit. We're coming to the end of the hour. So Replit is one I would recommend. Cursor is another one. I have Cursor. Sorry, I couldn't show it to you today. And then all of them have free accounts, by the way, right? So anyway, so if you're interested in more about AI design, no code, low code, etc., I'm gonna drop the link in the chat, and then it'll be on the Planet Cassandra blog as well. But there's a weekly session on AI design and no code automation. And we talk about prompt engineering, we talk about data engineering as it relates to AI engineering. So not necessarily Cassandra stuff, but vibe coding is a thing. We've been doing it on this on these office hours. So if you're interested, hop on. Thank you for having me, Sahil. Appreciate it. And I think that's it.
All right, thank you, Rahul, and thank you, everybody. And I just want to say that our next meetup is on April 25. And we're gonna talk about CEP 43, Creativity Like. And I hope to see you guys there. And thank you again, Rahul, for this great presentation. A lot to learn there. And let me also paste the link for the next meetup.
I think you might have to publish it. Oh, there it is. I
It is
see
published.
I see it.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Sahil. You guys have a wonderful rest of the day. All right. Take care.